Okay guys, I'm pulling the basic YouTuber move and we're doing a tier list video. Let's go. And as you can tell down here, we do have the famous Kaiserreich slash Redux political ideologies down here, and we're gonna be ranking them. Now, this isn't a political video. This isn't me trying to rank them based off like my own feelings like, oh, radical socialism, that's the way to go. That's how we should run our governments. No, fuck that. This isn't a political channel, so screw your guys' political ideologies. I don't fucking care. No, this is just a ranking based off really my own feelings towards how strong the ideologies are in the Kaiserreich universe, and pretty much how prominent of an effect they have on the gameplay and stuff like that. Now, this video isn't too in-depth here. I'm just kind of doing this on a whim here. This isn't going too into depth like, oh, which ideology gives the most overall best effects and stuff like that, because that would just be stupid, because each country is different. So even if they have the same ideology, the fucking effects are all different. But I just thought I'd do this for fun here. Now, I was trying to think of how I wanted to do this and what kind of order. I didn't want to just do it in random. And I think I'm going to start with the more moderate ideologies and then move out to more of the extremes, both on the left and the right. So totalism and national populism will be saved for last. Now, first up we have on the list is social liberalism, which I have to say is a little hard to place because it's just so bland. Yeah, I just feel like whenever you want to go like a democratic path, usually it's with social democracy or social conservatism, but social liberalism you just don't see a lot because I feel like there's not a whole lot to it. Yeah, they're liberals, but that's it. So there really isn't a whole lot to, I feel like, do with them. Now, am I saying every social liberal path is bad or boring? No, I love playing like the democracies. I just haven't shown it much on this channel, but I just feel like this one gets overshadowed a lot by the other more democratic ideologies. And so with that, I think I'm gonna have to go ahead and put social liberalism at a C tier. I think that's fair. It's just there. I don't think it's special or anything. Now, moving towards the right, we have market liberalism. Now, I like market liberalism because now with the Kaiserreich setup, it has national populace on one side and totalism on the other side. So you think they're both the exact opposite, but really not. If you think of this in like, what is it, the horseshoe theory, market liberals are the exact opposite of totalism, because not only are they liberal, they're free capitalists, and that's neither of which are totalism, and sometimes syndicalism if they really want to go that route, and I guess radical socialism, but it depends how authoritarian they get, I guess. So I feel like when just battling against extremists, this is just like the go-to one. Granted, it still gets overshadowed in my opinion by social conservatism and social democracy, but there it is still pretty good. And with that, I think I'm gonna have to put it in C territory too, but I think I'm gonna put it right above social liberalism just because I think it's a bit more definite on its ideology, whereas, you know, social liberalism, it can mean a lot of things. Like, okay, so like how will you run the economy? Is it going to be free or more controlled? So I feel like just market liberalism is a bit more defined. Now, moving back on the left, we have social democracy. So I've already mentioned social democracy here quite a bit. I think social democracy is a great way to play if you want to go, you definitely want to be socialist, but you don't just want to go like a LARP totalist path or even go as far as radical socialism. And I feel like social democracy has a lot to do in the world of Kaiserreich. You see a lot of nations go social democrat. Even the main front runner against the socialists is Germany, which has a pretty prominent democratic socialist party, and I think they're just a very overall powerful ideology in the world of Kaiserreich. And with that, I think I'm gonna have to go and put social democracy in A tier. And up next to the right, we have social conservatism. Once again, social conservatism, I feel like is just one of the more prominent liberal ideologies, but because I feel like it's just the main right-leaning liberal or more democratic paths. Like I said, you have market liberals, but I feel like social conservatism just outshines them in every way. And even Germany starts out as social conservatives now instead of authoritarian democrats. So rest in peace to all my auth democracies. And with the constant state of updates in Kaiserreich, social conservatism has gotten a bit of boost in power or popularity, whatever you want to say. just because Germany now starts out as social conservatives and also does the Austrians. Now, as for the placement of social democracy, I think I'm going to have to go with B tier. I think it's just overall all right. Quite truthfully, I think social democracy is on par with them, but I just feel like it's not as popular in the world of Kaiserreich compared to social democracy. And now, this is where we get to the more extreme ideologies. On to the left, we got radical socialism. Now, radical socialism is probably one of the most blurred on, or at least one of the most blurred ideologies, because I guess, first of all, they're radical and they're socialists. And once again, you know how left-wing infighting goes, so there's a lot of different ways you could look at this. There's a lot of different sub-ideologies in radical socialism, and I think that just really hinders the overall popularity of their movement. And based off the world of Kaiserreich, syndicalism is supposed to be the more front runner when it comes to the left-wing ideologies, at least to the extreme end. It's didn't really pop off too much in our timeline, but in the world of Kaiserreich, it's basically what caused the revolution in France and Union of Britain. At least I think so. I'm not really good on my lore. But as for radical socialism, I just feel like they get outclassed in every way. And once again, it's very blurred when it comes to their ideology, because each nation can be different. They could be anarchists, or they could just be the overall around just regular socialists. It's really hard to tell sometimes. And with that, I think I'm gonna have to put them in D territory. I just don't really see a lot in them. And at least with the state of Kaiserreich right now, there's not a whole lot of interesting radical socialist paths. In my opinion, I'm sorry. I haven't played every path too, so I might be missing out on something, so please forgive me. Now, moving back onto the right side, we got authoritarian democracy. Now, I have to say, authoritarian democracy, I feel quite sad for. They've just gotten a lot of hits to their overall impact, I feel like. They lost a lot of interesting people and nations. First off, Huey Long is now considered national populist, so there they go, losing Huey. And they also lost their grip of power onto Germany, as they're now considered social conservatives. So I feel like authoritarian democracy has just gotten one hit after the next. But also on top of that, their ideology is also, once again, not very well defined. I wouldn't say to the state of radical socialism, just in the sense that they're trying to stay liberal, but hey, the state's going to intervene when they want to. But even with their constant debuffs to their popularity and overall impact in the world of Kaiserreich, and even their vagueness, I'd still put them in B territory, because there's still a lot of interesting paths for authoritarian Democrats, in my opinion. Especially in the more liberal / monarchy states, where they just want to find that balance, and I feel like authoritarian democracy is that balance. And with that, I think I'm gonna have to put them in B territory. Now, above social conservatism, I probably would still keep them below them, just because I feel like social conservatives have gotten a lot of buffs over the year, and I think they've just started to get that tipping point, just getting a little over that hedge, if you know what I mean. Now, back onto the left, we're going up with our main proponent of the left ideology of the world of Kaiserreich, and that is syndicalism. In our timeline, not so effective, but in the world of Kaiserreich, this basically kickstarted everything. And I also will say their ideology is pretty much well defined, because it's not as blurred as radical socialist, but it's also not too much up to interpretation with totalism, because with totalism, well, we'll get to that. But with syndicalism, I feel like it's just, they're syndicalists. That's all there is to it. And I feel like that's very strengthening for them, especially with how most left-leaning parties have a lot of infighting. But not even just their more defined ideology, they are basically the forefront runners to fighting capitalism and like Germany and whatnot. And with that, I have to say they're pretty powerful. Now, with the placement of syndicalism, I will have to go and put them in S tier. Most of their paths, yes, very boring, but they're still very strong. And once again, they are just pretty much the forefront runners to combating Germany and the liberal West. So I feel like I have to give credit where credit is due. But moving back to the right side now, we got paternal autocracy. Oh boy. I feel like paternal autocracy might just be radical socialism and not being very well defined. Now, obviously, paternal autocracy is more often than not towards the right side of the spectrum of the political ideologies. With paternal autocracy, it's just, hey, there's a dude running this country and he's an autocrat, so you better like it or shut up. I will give some benefit to paternal autocracy because that's where most absolute monarch paths lie, is in paternal autocracy. And then also you get some cool paths with Ergen Sternberg in Mongolia, which he's definitely gotten some hits and relevancy in Kaiserreich, but hey, still, I mean, the whole Genghis Khan thing in Kaiser Redux is pretty cool, I guess. But this is a tier list more for Kaiserreich than Kaiser Redux because Kaiser Redux is a whole nother story, so I can't really go off of what Kaiser Redux has. And so with their placement, I'm gonna have to put them in B territory. Now, do I want to put it above authoritarian democracy? Yes. Now, I wouldn't say it's by a huge amount, but I feel like when most people go with monarch paths, they usually just go with the absolute monarchs. But also, I still feel like paternal autocracy might even have a bit more control over the world of Kaiserreich than authoritarian democracy itself. Even if that doesn't mean they're leading a nation per se, I just feel like they're a lot more prominent. You got the Zvino in Bulgaria, and then, like I said, Ergen Sternberg in Mongolia, just doing whatever the hell he wants. And then also Chinese warlords, because when you can't really define them with an ideology, just give them paternal autocracy because, hey, they're an autocrat, that's for sure. And so that's why I'm gonna have to put them above authoritarian democracy. And well, looky here, we got our last two ideologies, and we're gonna be going with totalism here first. Now, these are where the pretty LARPy paths get here, just because they're the most extreme of the ideologies. But for totalism here, I feel like they do a pretty good job in trying to determine what their ideology is, but there's almost a split in totalism. And what that split is there's more of the communist path, so more orthodox communist, whatever you want to call it, and then the more actual totalist paths, I want to say, that's where you get stuff like Mosley in there, where it's basically a red fascism, or sort of the equivalent to red fascism. Now, I will give totalism a bit of credit here, even with their kind of split in ideology almost, they are still a bit more defined than, say, other ideologies. But I'm not going to try to let that hinder it too much because there is a lot of cool paths with totalism. I feel like the first person people think of is Mosley himself in the Union of Britain. And then you also have the French counterpart, Sorellis. I don't know, I'm not going to try to pronounce it. But yeah, there's just a lot of LARPy paths with totalism, and I feel like it's one of the more unhinged paths. And I would even go to say totalism is closer to our fascism than the national populace in Kaiserreich, which we'll get to here in a second. But when it comes to placing totalism, I think I'm gonna have to put them in B tier. And as a matter of fact, I think I'm gonna put them at low B tier below the rest of these three. And the reason being is just because I feel like without Mosley, totalism would just totally fall apart, because really, when you think of totalism, you only think of one person, and it's Mosley, and we can't just have Mosley run the whole totalist ideology. We gotta have more people, because else their impact on the world stage isn't a whole lot. And so with that, I think it just hinders them a lot, and once again, the split does kind of hurt them a bit. So I think they're just gonna have to go with low B here. And saving one of the most confusing ideologies, I think, in Kaiserreich, in my opinion, for last, national populism. Now, when it comes to most undefined ideology in Kaiserreich, I think national populism has to take the mantle here. Reason being is because you don't really see a lot of national populists in the game. I will say they did get a boost in power with Huey Long now be considering a national populist, but even then it's super vague. But when it comes to the forefronters of national populism, we have some very interesting nations like Romania, Savinkov, and then obviously Huey Long. I feel like those are the most prominent, and also Portugal starts out national populist, but I feel like they have way less of an effect on the world stage. I feel like for most people, and just for, or at least for me, whenever I think of national populism, I think of Savinkov in Russia and Huey Long in the American Union state. And I have to say they vary quite a lot, but not even just with the varying politicians. I feel like national populism also has a pretty big split in the fact that you can either go more a monarchy path or a more Republican path. And with that, I feel like it just kind of makes this ideology all over the place. You can either go monarchy or no monarchy. You can either go full on dictatorship or more, hey, our nationality is the best, so that makes us a national populace, but we might not be totally totalitarian. And with the placement of national populism, I think I'm gonna have to go with D tier. I know this might come as a surprise to many, but I just, once again, it's very vague and it can just swing anywhere. So I feel like most national populist countries in Kaiserreich just wouldn't get along very well, and they wouldn't be able to unite against a common enemy, I feel like, because once again, they're basically in every side of the political box. They're authoritarian left, or authoritarian right, or more towards the liberal side right. I wouldn't say liberal left, but you get the point. Now, as for D placement, I think I am going to keep it below radical socialism, just because at least radical socialism, they can say, hey, at least we have left-leaning economics. Now, what kind of left-leaning economics, that's more up to debate, but hey, at least they're on the left side, whereas with national populism, they can have left-wing economics, which we kind of saw in our timeline with Nazi Germany. But we're not trying to compare our timeline to Kaiserreich, because I don't want that affecting this overall ranking. But there you have it. This is my overall ranking of the political ideologies in the world of Kaiserreich. But if you did enjoy today's video, please make sure to like and subscribe. It really does help out the channel. Once again, this is not a political ranking. This is more a power-based ranking slash how well defined slash unified is an ideology in Kaiserreich. So please don't take this seriously. But hey, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.